Good morning. In Exodus 32:15 through 34, Moses disciplines Israel for their grave sin against God. They had quickly abandoned the hope they had in Moses and the Lord while he was atop the mountain, meeting with God and getting instructions and specifications for how they would live and worship. They grew impatient, ungrateful, and sought after what was right to their own eyes and what was pleasing to themselves. And I think the seriousness of their sin here at the bottom of the mountain is magnified simply by the description of the tablets Moses had received in verses 15 and 16. And when we read that, we get a sense of the magnitude of what had just taken place. The tablets were described as being inscribed on both sides, front and back. The verses note that this was the work of God Moses was holding, the writing of God himself engraved on the tablets. His commandments, instructions, his outline for worship and service for Israel. This was a work of God, a holy thing. And while they are coming down the mountain, Joshua hears something, and Moses notices it as well. It's not the sound of war, but of celebration and singing. And while they were up to something holy at the top of the mountain, Israel was up to something sinfully idolatrous at the bottom. They had created a golden calf to worship. So Moses throws down the tablets in anger. He burns the calf, grinds it up, and puts it in the water for Israel to drink. This just points to the shame they should have. And when Moses asked the man in charge, Aaron, about this, Aaron kind of passes the buck. He answers in verses 22 and 24, "Do not be angry with me, my Lord. You know how prone these people are to evil. They said to me, 'Make us gods who will go before us.' As for this fellow Moses who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what has happened to him. Where'd he go? We need someone to worship." So Aaron says, "I told them, whoever has any gold jewelry, take it off. And then they gave me the gold, and I threw it into the fire, Moses, and out came this calf." That's his explanation. Aaron failed in his leadership here. What an absurd excuse. I threw it in the fire, and out came this calf. It would be hilarious if it was not so awful. We too are prone to evil like the Israelites. But we need leaders who will stand up, who will keep us in line. And while this was a failure on Aaron's part, God spares him, which cannot be said of some of the others later on. Moses is left here to clean up the mess and to remove the sin from Israel's midst. And so he calls the Levites together. 3,000 people are slain as a result of this heinous act of defiance against God. But more punishment would come. And so now Moses goes back and intercedes for the people. He asks God to forgive them, even if it means Moses himself being blotted out of God's book, he says. What a leader, willing to sacrifice his own self for the forgiveness of God's people. So contrast that with Aaron a few minutes ago. A leader cares for his flock, flawed as they are, and that was certainly the case here. God assures Moses that he will repay those who have sinned against him. Nevertheless, he tells Moses to continue leading the people. And he actually sends a plague among them as a punishment for those who worship the calf. We can see here that leadership is important. Patience, waiting on God, is important. Recognizing the serious consequences of sin is an important thing. And knowing the power and holiness of the God that we serve is so very important. When Moses offered himself in intercession for Israel, God assured him that the people would pay for their sin. But when Christ is later offered for salvation of all people, God would pour his wrath on him instead of those who really deserved it. The real idolaters. That's us. Let's be grateful today that we can find grace and forgiveness before our Father God. And when we fail, he's there to restore us. And let us just put away any idolatry in our own lives. Have a great day.